Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Loch Ness Monster, what the latest DNA evidence actually revealed. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 2019, a team of scientists from the University of Otago spent weeks on Loch Ness collecting water samples from 250 locations across the loch, at varying depths, in all weather. They were not looking for a monster. They were looking for DNA. Environmental DNA, eDNA, is shed by every living creature into the water around it: skin cells, scales, mucus, feces. Modern sequencing can identify a species from a fragment too small to see. If something large and unknown lived in Loch Ness, it would leave DNA. The scientists analyzed over 3,000 species from their samples. They found no large unknown animal, no reptile, no fish of unusual size, but they did find something unexpected: an enormous quantity of European eel DNA distributed throughout the entire loch. Lead scientist Neil Gemmel was careful not to claim a giant eel lurks in Loch Ness, but he was equally careful not to rule it out. European eels do grow large. They are serpentine, they surface rarely, and the sonar contacts from the 1987 Operation Deepscan survey, 3 unexplained returns at 180 meters depth, have never been satisfactorily explained either. So where does the evidence actually leave us? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Governments keep secrets. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, confirmed by declassified archives, freedom of information disclosures, and the confessions of officials long after the events in question. The United States government ran secret programs to test psychedelic drugs on unwitting civilians culture, to spy on its own citizens, COINTELPRO, and to cover up nuclear testing incidents that killed American soldiers. The British government suppressed information about UFO encounters by military personnel for decades. The Soviet Union systematically falsified scientific data to maintain ideological conformity. None of this means that every government secret involves supernatural phenomena or alien contact. The reality of classified programs is almost always more mundane. Military technology being tested covertly, intelligence operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or simply the bureaucratic instinct to classify first and justify later. Most UFO sightings that turn out to have official explanations were classified aircraft. Most government denials of anomalous phenomena are straightforwardly honest. The phenomena being denied are simply not real. But the documented history of government secrecy has a practical effect on investigative credibility. When officials deny knowledge of events that witnesses describe in compelling detail, that denial cannot be taken at face value without independent corroboration. The proven track record of institutional concealment means that institutional denial, however authoritative it sounds, is not the same as evidence of absence. This complicates every modern mystery that touches on official narrative. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Loch Ness Monster. What the latest DNA evidence actually revealed is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Loch Ness is 37 kilometers long, up to 230 meters deep, and approximately 1.5 kilometers wide. It contains more fresh water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. Visibility in the water is extremely low due to peat particles suspended throughout. The loch was formed by glacial action and has been connected to the sea via the River Ness since the last ice age, meaning anything living in it could, in principle, have entered from the open ocean. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the modern wave of nessie sightings began in 1933, the year a new road was constructed along the northern shore, dramatically increasing the number of people with a view of the water. The earliest written account of a monster in the loch dates to a 7th century hagiography of St. Columba, who reportedly commanded a water beast to retreat. Modern cryptozoologists treat this as historical confirmation. Historians treat it as standard medieval hagiographic convention. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the surgeon's photo of 1934, the most famous and widely reproduced image of the Loch Ness Monster, showing a long neck rising from the water, was exposed as a hoax in 1994 when Christian Sperling confessed on his deathbed to constructing it. A toy submarine with a sculpted head made from putty, photographed in Loch Ness and submitted to a docked. Or Robert Kenneth Wilson as a practical joke that escaped control. The confession was corroborated by documentary research. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Operation Deepscan in 1987 deployed a line of 24 sonar boats scanning the loch from shore to shore. 3 contacts were recorded at approximately 180 meters depth, larger than any fish confirmed in the loch. The contacts were not explained. Sonar operator Daryl Lawrence called them significant. No follow-up expedition reproduced the contacts. Possible explanations include large gas bubble releases from the peaty bottom sediment, large schools of fish, or debris from decomposing organic matter. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Neil Gemmel of the University of Otago led an eDNA survey in 2018, published in 2019 in Scientific Reports. His team collected 250 water samples from across the loch at multiple depths. The samples were processed at laboratories in New Zealand, France, Denmark, and the United States. Over 3,000 species were identified from the DNA present in Loch Ness water. The results included no evidence of large fish, no reptile DNA, and no DNA from any species not already known to inhabit the Loch, except for very large quantities of European eel. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: European eels, angula, are catadromous. They live in freshwater but migrate to the Sargasso Sea to breed and can enter Loch Ness via the River Ness. They are serpentine, surface rarely, and the largest individuals recorded have exceeded 1.5 meters. Gemmel proposed that very large eels, perhaps several meters long, could account for some historical sightings. No European eel approaching such a size has ever been confirmed. The giant eel hypothesis is speculative, but it is now the most scientifically grounded candidate explanation for certain sightings. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Loch Ness Monster, what the latest DNA evidence actually revealed. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Loch Ness Monster is a large or unusually large European eel, Gemmel's cautious post-eDNA suggestion. Eels are present in enormous quantities, are serpentine, surface rarely, and the loch's low visibility and vast depth make confirmation difficult. No giant eel has ever been captured or found dead in the loch, and eels do not typically grow to the sizes described by witnesses. But the hypothesis fits the eDNA evidence better than any exotic alternative and is the current scientific frontrunner. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the monster is a plesiosaur or other large prehistoric reptile surviving in the loch, the most popular cultural explanation since the 1930s. Featured in countless books, films, and documentaries, this hypothesis fails on multiple grounds. Plesiosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago. The loch was formed after the last ice age, and too recently to trap a relic population. And Gemmel's eDNA survey found no reptile DNA of any kind in 250 water samples taken throughout the loch. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that all reported sightings are misidentifications of known animals and objects: swimming deer or otters seen from a distance, large pike or catfish near the surface, floating logs animated by waves. Optical illusions on the water surface, are deliberate hoaxes. This explanation accounts for most documented cases and is consistent with the eDNA evidence, but struggles to explain the 3 unexplained sonar contacts in 1987 at 180 meters depth, which remain genuinely unresolved. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Loch Ness Monster, what the latest DNA evidence actually revealed, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Gemmel's 2019 eDNA survey is the most comprehensive biological survey ever conducted of Loch Ness. 250 samples, 4 independent laboratories, over 3,000 species identified, and no large unknown animal DNA. The methodology is highly sensitive. eDNA analysis can detect a single individual of a species from a water sample. If something large and biological inhabits the loch, it would leave DNA. The absence of any anomalous DNA is the strongest evidence yet against a large unknown animal in Loch Ness. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the 1934 surgeon's photo hoax confirmation, corroborated by Christian Sperling's deathbed confession and subsequent documentary research, removed the most iconic piece of visual evidence from the record. The loch has been continuously monitored by cameras, sonar, hydrophones, and infrared sensors for decades. No large, unknown surface animal has been captured on any monitoring equipment in that time. The loch is well fished and well studied. No large, unknown animal carcass has ever been recovered. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the 1987 Operation Deepscan sonar contacts at 180 meters remain unexplained and represent the most technically credible anomalous data in the Nessie record. However, sonar returns at depth in a peaty freshwater loch can be produced by thermoclines, gas bubble releases from bottom sediment, and large schools of char or pike. The contacts were not reproduced in subsequent sonar surveys. Absence of a mundane explanation is not the same as evidence of a large unknown animal, but the 1987 data has never been satisfactorily dismissed. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Loch Ness Monster, what the latest DNA evidence actually revealed. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Gemmel's 2019 paper remains the definitive modern scientific statement on Loch Ness. No large unknown animal, but abundant eel DNA. Tourism to the Loch generates approximately £41 million annually for the Scottish Highlands. The legend has enormous economic value regardless of its biological status. In 2023, the Loch Ness Centre organized the largest surface search in 50 years, using thermal drones and hydrophones. Nothing conclusive was found. Infrared cameras now monitor the Loch surface continuously. The Scottish Highlands are not ready to let Nessie go, and the eel hypothesis, while undramatic, at least has the virtue of being consistent with all the evidence currently available. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Loch Ness Monster, what the latest DNA evidence actually revealed, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Loch Ness Monster ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.